and let us not pull any punches. The whole idea of war and the whole idea of soldiering is to kill. That's it.
And to what extent were you able to sideline so many of the mythologies and the tropes that we grow up learning or hearing about? The obvious ones, George Washington and the cherry tree, but there are so many that it's almost as if you had to, and perhaps you did, like, start from scratch. You find sources, extraordinary sources who'd not been heard from before, voices who'd never been brought into the conversation in what Rick referred to as this extremely diverse country.
Well, I think that's the really important point, is that we've in our reductionism, in the simplicity, we've sanitized our American Revolution, and I assume don't want to deal with the messiness that Rick just described, and the horrors of it, because we don't want those big ideas that took place in Philadelphia, and they really are big ideas in the history of humankind, to be diminished. But they aren't diminished. And what you do is you don't set out to explode myths. You set out to tell what actually happened. And you find out, I suppose, along the way, that we don't know who made the first flag. So you don't hear the word Betsy Ross in our film. Nobody said, "Don't fire until you see the whites of their eyes" at Bunker Hill. They just had, in 3 different attacks, different amounts of yards before they fired. We don't know if Nathan Hale said, "I regret that I have but one life to give for my country." So these things are not, we're not pointing arrows at them and saying, "Look, this did not happen." We're just passing by moments that may or may not be familiar in a country that has grown more and more ahistorical. We've actually just tried to tell an important story. And what is important is that these 13 colonies have the widest variety of people in it. There are 3 million or so by the time the war is underway, 500,000 of whom are enslaved or free blacks. There are many native peoples living within, assimilated. There are many native peoples who are trying to coexist. Their land was taken from them. There are native nations that are as distinct as France is from Prussia on the western borders, that have been on the international scene with diplomacy, with trade, with military things. They've been to Paris. They've been to London. They understand things in a way that our simplistic view of them belies. And I think that we have half the population of women who never get credit for the extraordinary role they play in keeping alive the resistance in the years leading up to the revolution. And then they're always there at every battle, and all of those stories need to be told. You also have to feel like, what's it like to be a German soldier who's the hired gun of the British Army? What's it like to be an Irish or Welsh or Scottish or Irish English soldier? What's it like to be a French diplomat making a decision like, I'm a Catholic nation and I am going to support mostly Protestants rebelling against their monarchy? How is that ultimately going to work out for me, other than the fact I'm blinded by my hatred for Great Britain? And so you
It only took 13 years to figure
you,
that one out.
you have lots of conflicting things, and it just makes it so interesting and so fascinating. And while it's important to focus on the extraordinary boldface names of those top-down figures, which we do, but try to make them dimensional and not kind of the two-dimensional people, the cherry tree people that we've inherited, from the worst possible reporting, but to also introduce scores of other people, bottom up, you would say, who are as important to a full understanding of the war. If you get to know Joseph Plum Martin, from Connecticut, who signs up a few days after the Declaration is signed in 76 and is blooded in the biggest battle of the Revolution, the Battle of Long Island, a horrible Patriot defeat, and is there at Redoubt number 10 at Yorktown going over the top. His boss is Lafayette, his boss is Hamilton, but he's there going over the top as a seasoned soldier. If he might still be 19, or he's just turned 20, and he's been doing this for many years, and he's good at what he does, as Rick pointed out. And let us not pull any punches. The whole idea of war and the whole idea of soldiering is to kill. That's it.